The quiet diner buzzed with the mundane sounds of clinking coffee mugs and soft chatter when Aaron West stumbled through the door. His wild eyes darted around the room, his disheveled clothes clinging to his trembling frame. The fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows over his gaunt face as he leaned against the counter, his breath ragged. "Help me," he whispered, barely audible over the murmur of the diners. A waitress, mid-pour of a steaming pot of coffee, froze, her wide eyes locking onto his. The room grew silent, all attention now fixed on the man, who looked like he had been running from death itself. "They took me!" Aaron gasped, clutching his chest as he crumpled into a booth. "I was abducted. Aliens! They took me!" A wave of stunned disbelief rippled through the diner. Some exchanged skeptical glances, others stifled nervous laughter. But Clare Simmons, a journalist nursing a cold cup of coffee at the far end of the room, set down her notebook and leaned in. Something about Aaron's terror felt real, too real. This wasn't the first time someone in their small, sleepy town had claimed to see something unexplainable. But what she didn't know was that Aaron's outlandish claim was only the beginning. As Claire's curiosity pulled her deeper into the mystery, the truth waiting to be uncovered in Aaron's basement would shake the entire town to its core. The real question was, would anyone survive to tell the story? Aaron West's claims of an alien abduction sent shockwaves through the small town of Clearwater. While most dismissed him as a lunatic seeking attention, a few couldn't shake the feeling that something darker lurked beneath his story. Among them was Clare Simmons, a seasoned journalist known for her relentless pursuit of truth. Her gut told her Aaron wasn't fabricating everything, and the wild fear in his eyes was too genuine to ignore. Claire's first encounter. The next day, Claire found herself standing outside Aaron's dilapidated home on the outskirts of town. His property was overgrown with weeds, the house itself leaning slightly as if weighed down by secrets. She knocked on the door, her heartbeat quickening. For a moment, there was no answer, and she considered leaving. But then, the door creaked open, and Aaron peeked out, his eyes bloodshot and filled with paranoia. "You can't be here," he hissed, looking around as if someone, or something, was watching. "I just want to hear your story," Claire replied calmly, holding up her notebook. "No judgment, just facts." Aaron hesitated before pulling her inside, bolting the door behind them. The interior was as unsettling as his demeanor. Papers covered in cryptic symbols were taped to the walls, and shelves were lined with jars containing unidentifiable organic matter. A faint, metallic smell lingered in the air, adding to the oppressive atmosphere. "They're still watching," Aaron whispered, pacing back and forth. "I shouldn't have told anyone. They don't want me talking." "Who doesn't want you talking?" Claire asked, her voice steady despite her unease. Aaron stopped abruptly, locking eyes with her. "Them. The ones who took me." Aaron's tale grew more disturbing with every word. He described a blinding light that enveloped him while he was walking home one night, followed by the sensation of floating. He claimed to have awakened strapped to a metallic table, surrounded by beings with elongated limbs and eyeless faces. They communicated with him telepathically, probing his mind and body in ways that felt invasive and violating. "It wasn't just me," Aaron said, his voice cracking. "I heard others, screaming, begging, but I couldn't see them. I couldn't move." Claire's instincts as a journalist kicked in. The details were vivid, almost too much so, yet Aaron's terror felt raw. Still, skepticism lingered. "Why do you think they chose you?" she asked. Aaron paused, his gaze darting to a corner of the room. "I don't think I was random," he muttered. "I think they knew what I was working on." This caught Claire's attention. "What were you working on?" she pressed. Aaron didn't answer. Instead, he stood abruptly and began gathering the papers from his walls, muttering to himself. "They're coming. I can feel it." Word of Claire's visit to Aaron's house spread quickly, fueling the town's already rampant gossip. The diner became the hub of heated debates. Some residents believed Aaron, citing their own experiences of strange lights in the sky or unexplained phenomena. Others dismissed him as a crackpot whose mental health had deteriorated. Sheriff Tom Grayson wasn't taking any chances. Known for his no-nonsense approach, he paid Aaron a visit, hoping to shut down the growing hysteria. When Claire joined the sheriff at Aaron's house, tensions flared. "West, you're scaring the whole town with your nonsense," Grayson said, crossing his arms. If this is some elaborate hoax, you're going to regret it." "It's not a hoax," Aaron shouted. "You don't know what's out there. You can't even begin to comprehend." "Then help us comprehend," Claire interrupted, her voice sharp but calm. "If you want people to believe you, you need to give us something tangible." Aaron hesitated before gesturing toward the basement door. "It's all down there," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But you won't understand. Not yet." With a mix of apprehension and determination, Claire and Sheriff Grayson followed Aaron into the basement. The air grew colder with each step, and a damp, earthy smell invaded their senses. When Aaron flipped the light switch, the dim glow of a single bulb revealed a room that could only be described as grotesque. The walls were lined with jars, each containing organic specimens that seemed to pulsate faintly. A makeshift lab dominated the center of the room, complete with wires, monitors, and an operating table stained with something dark and unidentifiable. But it was a small, locked cabinet in the corner that drew Claire's attention. "What's in there?" she asked, her voice steady but tinged with unease. Aaron hesitated, then retrieved a key from his pocket. "The proof," he said. Inside the cabinet were metallic objects, small, intricate devices that seemed too advanced to be of human origin. One of them emitted a faint hum when Claire touched it, sending a shiver down her spine. What is this?" she whispered. "It's what they left behind," Aaron replied, his voice hollow. "After they let me go." Grayson, visibly unnerved, stepped back. "This is insane. You're telling me aliens left you with souvenirs?" Aaron's expression darkened. "They didn't leave me with anything. I took it, and they want it back." After the basement discovery, Claire knew she had stumbled upon something far bigger than a simple human interest story. She took photos of the devices and the lab, intending to send them to a contact who specialized in unexplainable phenomena. But before she could, her phone mysteriously malfunctioned, erasing all the images. Meanwhile, strange things began happening in Clearwater. Lights flickered erratically at night, and residents reported hearing low-frequency hums that made their bones ache. Pets disappeared, and one family claimed their child woke up screaming about faceless people in his room. Aaron, growing more erratic, barricaded himself in his house, refusing to speak to anyone except Claire. He insisted the town was being watched, and the signs were everywhere. Claire didn't want to believe him, but the evidence was mounting. The breaking point as tension reached its peak when Sheriff Grayson, reluctantly acting on growing concerns, organized a search of Aaron's house. Aaron resisted, screaming that they were playing right into their hands, but he was overpowered and taken into custody. As the authorities searched the house, they found something that shook even the most skeptical among them. Hidden behind a false wall in the basement was another room, this one containing a large spherical device that pulsed with an otherworldly glow. "What the hell is this?" Grayson muttered, his usual bravado replaced by fear. Before anyone could answer, the device emitted a low hum that grew louder and louder until the entire house shook. Lights exploded, and the room was plunged into darkness. When the chaos subsided, the device was gone, and so was Aaron. The town was left reeling. Claire, shaken but determined, pored over her notes, desperate to make sense of what had happened. Sheriff Grayson resigned, citing unexplainable circumstances as his reason. And while Aaron's house was cordoned off as a crime scene, whispers of glowing lights and strange noises persisted. Claire knew one thing for certain. Whatever had happened, it wasn't over, and the answers she sought might just cost her everything. The town of Clearwater had been thrown into chaos since the night Aaron West vanished. Clare Simmons, the seasoned journalist, couldn't shake the feeling that Aaron's warnings had merit. Determined to uncover the truth, she returned to Aaron's house, now abandoned and eerily quiet. Armed with a flashlight and a recorder, she ventured into the basement where the mysterious glowing device had once pulsed with energy. As Claire descended the creaky stairs, the oppressive silence made her heart beat thunder in her ears. The basement, stripped of its contents by investigators, now seemed hollow. But Claire noticed something they had missed. A faint metallic scraping sound coming from beneath the floorboards. She knelt down and pried up one of the loose planks, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a journal, worn and weathered, its pages filled with Aaron's meticulous handwriting. Diagrams of the device, accounts of his alleged abduction, and cryptic warnings about the Watchers filled the pages. One entry stood out: If they take me, find the second device. It's the key to everything. Claire's breath caught. A second device? She had to find it. A race against time as Claire's search led her to Clearwater's library, where Aaron had spent countless hours before his disappearance. She sifted through public records, property deeds, and old town maps, eventually stumbling upon a chilling discovery. A large plot of land on the outskirts of town, listed as owned by Clearwater Research Corporation, had been abandoned for decades. It was rumored to be the site of a failed government experiment. Her instinct screamed that this was where Aaron had found the devices, and possibly where the second one was hidden. The next day, Claire enlisted the help of Ben, a local tech enthusiast and conspiracy theorist. With his equipment and expertise, they planned to investigate the site. As they approached the location, the air grew colder, and an unnatural hum seemed to vibrate through the ground. The abandoned facility loomed ahead, its rusted gates creaking as they pushed them open. Inside, the building was a maze of decayed hallways and empty rooms, but in the center of the structure, Claire and Ben found what they were looking for. A cavernous chamber with a pedestal in its center. On it rested the second device. Unlike the one in Aaron's basement, this device glowed faintly, as if dormant. Claire reached out, her fingers trembling, and the moment she touched it, the room erupted in light. The walls shimmered, revealing strange symbols and images that seemed to dance in the air. Ben, wide-eyed, shouted, "Claire, I think it's communicating!" Suddenly, the light condensed into a single beam, pointing to a section of the wall. Claire approached and found a hidden panel. Behind it was a small encrypted drive, a piece of technology far beyond anything she'd seen before. "This must be what Aaron meant," Claire whispered. "It's the key." Claire and Ben returned to her office, where they worked tirelessly to decrypt the data on the drive. What they uncovered was both astonishing and terrifying. The drive contained footage, grainy but unmistakable, of Aaron's abduction. The images showed a beam of light lifting him from the street and transporting him to a sterile, otherworldly environment. The beings he described were there, their elongated forms moving with eerie precision. But the footage didn't stop at Aaron's abduction. It showed experiments, tests conducted on multiple individuals, many of whom never returned. Then, a final chilling message scrolled across the screen. "You are not alone. We are always watching." Claire and Ben sat in stunned silence. This wasn't just about aliens. It was about an ongoing, systematic study of humanity. The devices were tools left behind, perhaps accidentally, or as bait. Claire debated what to do with the information. Releasing it would cause mass panic, and potentially endanger anyone who knew about the devices. But keeping it hidden felt like a betrayal of the truth. In the end, Claire published a carefully crafted article, omitting the most damning details, but revealing enough to spark a global conversation. She described Aaron's experiences, the strange occurrences in Clearwater, and the existence of the devices. The story went viral, drawing attention from both believers and skeptics. Meanwhile, the second device was quietly handed over to a trusted scientific organization that promised to study it responsibly. Claire knew this wouldn't be the end. The Watchers were still out there, and Aaron's warning lingered in her mind. 1 month later, Claire received an unmarked envelope containing a single photograph. It was blurry but unmistakable. Aaron West, standing in an unfamiliar landscape under a sky filled with 2 moons. On the back, scrawled in Aaron's shaky handwriting, were the words, "I'm still here, keep looking." Claire's hands shook as she held the photo. The mystery wasn't over, not by a long shot, and she was ready for whatever came next.